If someone migrates to another country in search of work and a better life, they're expected to integrate into the new society and forget their old identity. And if they fail to do so, the result is that they become something in between, a distorted version of themselves, living a life full of contradictions, like someone trying to eat bread and chocolate at the same time. Hello everyone, this is your lazy reviewer, and today's episode is very special to me because I'll be talking about one of my favorite films, the Italian movie Bread and Chocolate, 1974. The story follows an Italian immigrant named Nino, played by Nino Manfredi, who has been working in Switzerland for years as a waiter, but without a stable contract. He tries to adapt, to fit in, to secure a permanent position so he can finally bring his wife and children from Italy. But he faces fierce competition from another waiter, a Turkish immigrant, who is chasing the exact same dream. Only one of them will get the job. Under all this pressure, Nino tries to stay invisible, to avoid trouble, but he ends up losing his job. He then meets his Greek neighbor, a political refugee, and decides to remain in the country illegally while searching for another opportunity. That's the basic plot, but I want to go deeper, starting with the brilliance of the title itself, Bread and Chocolate. At the beginning of the film, we actually see Nino eating a chocolate sandwich, but after that, the film never shows it again, because the title has two meanings. The literal meaning, Nino is so careful with his money that even on his only day off, he doesn't spend enough to eat a proper meal. Chocolate is widely available in Switzerland and cheaper compared to other foods. Even Swiss cheese is expensive. But the symbolic meaning is far more important. Bread and chocolate are opposites. Chocolate represents luxury. Bread represents labor. Nino came to this country to work hard so he and his family could live the life of comfort he dreams of, but that dream remains out of reach. The opening scene is brilliant and perfectly captures Nino's inner world. On his day off, he stands in a public park. The locals are enjoying refined classical music, smiling, relaxed, while Nino stands there trying to enjoy it, forcing a smile that doesn't belong to him. Then he takes out his lunch, bread and chocolate, and the moment he starts eating, the music suddenly stops. Nino freezes. He feels embarrassed, afraid, convinced he did something wrong. He thinks everyone is staring at him for eating such a strange combination. But in reality, it was just a pause in the music. No one was looking at him. This moment tells us everything about Nino. His loneliness, his alienation, and his deep sense of inferiority. He tries to integrate, talking to a Swiss woman, playing with a child, but nothing works. Then he stumbles upon a murdered girl and runs away in fear, only to be taken to the police station. When asked why he ran instead of reporting the crime, he says he didn't want trouble. The officer checks his papers and asks, "You're Italian?" And Nino replies, "No one is perfect, sir." That single line reveals everything about how he sees himself. He's so convinced of his inferiority that he believes he'll be punished for a crime he didn't commit just because he's Italian. But he's released. The real killer confessed. Back at work, we see his struggle again, trying to match the professionalism of others, but solving problems in his own Italian way. We meet his strict boss, rebellious Italian co-workers, and see how immigrants themselves sometimes damage their own image. He meets a wealthy Italian man, someone who once came poor and became successful, and admires him. We also see Nino's small, depressing apartment, his longing for his family, and his strange coexistence with the Turkish worker, living like enemies under the same roof. Then comes the turning point. The next day, Nino was called by his manager, and he becomes happy, thinking that they will finally give him a permanent position. But he is shocked to learn that after being released from the police station, due to his extreme fear and stress, he relieved himself in the street, and someone photographed him and reported him to the manager. As a result, the manager decides to fire him because of his uncivilized behavior and send him back to Italy. The news hits Nino like a thunderbolt. We then see him on the train, filled with regret and sadness, unlike the other Italians who are singing happily as they return home. Nino looks out the window and sees that the Turkish man's family has arrived, which means that the Turkish man achieved everything Nino had dreamed of. He becomes furious, gets off the train, and decides to stay in the country illegally. But due to an unintended mistake, the train leaves with his suitcase. Now, Nino has nowhere to go except to his neighbor Elena's house, who does not welcome him warmly and seems frightened by his sudden arrival. While they are talking, another visitor comes to her and she becomes terrified and asks Nino to hide. He needs her son, who is hiding in a closet because he entered the country illegally. She is now dating an important man in the government who can fix her son's legal status. The boy is forced to sleep during the day and only wake up at night. Nino spends the night with the child, who reminds him of his own son. The next day, Nino goes to meet the wealthy Italian man he met earlier and asks him for any job. The man hires him as a driver and offers to invest the money Nino has saved in the stock market. Nino agrees, gives him his savings, and starts working for him. He drives him to the airport to receive his children arriving from Italy to attend their boarding school in Switzerland. The children show no interest in their father and leave immediately, and we see how lonely and sad he is despite all his wealth. That same night, Nino prepares a surprise birthday celebration for Elena, and a romantic relationship quickly develops between them. The next day, Nino goes to work and finds the mansion empty without servants. When he goes upstairs, he finds his employer dying. While searching his belongings, he discovers that the man attempted suicide by poisoning himself. Nino rushes to call for help and then reads in the newspaper that his employer lost all his money in the stock market and became bankrupt. At that moment, Nino realizes that his money is also gone. When he tries to confront him or ask about his money, he discovers that the man has already died, taking with him everything Nino had saved in his life. Nino then goes to one of his old friends who works in underground excavation to stay with him. There, he finds an Italian community living in conditions even worse than his own. They work all day in inhumane conditions and do not go out at night, so they create their own form of entertainment. Some of them wear women's clothes, dance together, and turn their workers' housing into an imaginary nightclub. Nino joins them. At first, everyone is happy, dancing and singing, but then a young worker breaks down. His dignity cannot handle it anymore. Nino initially tries to convince him that they are just joking, but then he realizes that what they are doing is meaningless, and even he cannot stay in such a place, so he leaves. At the train station before boarding, he meets a mysterious man who offers him a job for people without residency permits. At first, he refuses, knowing it will be humiliating or suspicious, but he quickly changes his mind because he cannot face his family. He goes to the address and finds a chicken farm where a family lives taking care of it for Swiss owners. Nino is shocked by this family. They have been living among chickens for years to the point that they have forgotten how to be human. Their young son cannot speak like humans. He speaks like a chicken, and they are proud of him. They all behave as if they are chickens. Nino watches them in horror and shock. They do not even realize the problem. They are no longer human. At that moment, the owner's children arrive with their friends and start walking around the farm, while the Italian family watches them from inside the coop, like chickens watching humans. Here, Nino gets an idea. The solution is in the hair color. He decides to become Swiss and dye his hair blonde, hoping to get a better chance and stop living in fear. At first, it works, and people treat him with respect for the first time. He goes to a cafe and admires a Swiss woman, and she seems to like him as well. Then, a football match is shown on television, Italy versus Switzerland. This is one of the most brilliant scenes in the film, proving instinctive belonging. Even though Nino chose with his mind to become Swiss for personal gain, he cannot resist his true identity. As the match begins, everyone cheers for Switzerland and mocks the Italian team. Nino tries to follow them, but when Italy scores, he jumps with joy, which leads to a fight in the cafe. As he leaves, he looks into a mirror in one of the greatest scenes in the entire film and sees a monster, neither Italian nor Swiss. At first, he mocks his reflection, then smashes the mirror with his head, causing himself to bleed, and fights again with the people around him. Then, unexpectedly, the Swiss woman he admired comes to his rescue, only for him to discover that she is actually a Spanish immigrant wearing a blonde wig. The police arrive and escort him for deportation at the train station. Nino washes his hair, but the dye only partially comes off, leaving his hair half black and half blonde, a monster. On his way, Nino tears down advertisement posters and flips garbage bins, justifying it by saying, "Sorry, but I'm Italian." As he boards the train, Elena calls out to him, telling him that she spoke to her government contact who can arrange a residency permit for him in Switzerland, but Nino refuses and wants to return to his country. As soon as he enters the train, he hits his head against the glass and loses consciousness. When he wakes up, the train has already moved. He listens to songs praising the beauty of Naples, performed by musicians on the train, and he appears confused, unsure of what to do. As the train enters a dark tunnel, we then see that Nino emerges again, back in Switzerland. He cannot leave, and he is suffering if he stays. The look on Nino's face expresses fear and confusion, and he remains on the railway between the two countries. And in the end, if you liked the episode, don't forget to like and share. This encourages me to continue. And most importantly, don't forget to stay lazy and watch great films.